The cold Montana wind whipped across the plains, rattling the windows of Amelia Everett's small homestead cabin as her 3-month-old daughter's cries pierced the night for the third time since sunset. Exhaustion pulled at her bones like lead weights as she dragged herself from the thin mattress, the embers in the fireplace casting long shadows across the rough-hewn floorboards. "Hush now, sweet girl," Amelia whispered, lifting little Sarah from the makeshift cradle beside her bed. "Mama's here." The baby's wails only intensified, her tiny face scrunched and red. Amelia bounced her gently, checking her cloth diaper and offering her breast, but nothing seemed to soothe the infant. Outside, the winter of 1878 showed no mercy, snow piling against the cabin's walls and seeping cold through every crack. Amelia's eyes burned with unshed tears of frustration and bone-deep weariness. 3 months since Sarah's birth, 3 months since John's death from pneumonia, leaving her alone on their homestead with 40 acres of promise that now seemed like a cruel joke. The nearest town was 5 miles away, and she hadn't spoken to another adult in weeks. The baby's crying reached a fever pitch, and Amelia felt her composure cracking. "Please, Sarah," she begged, her voice breaking. "Please stop crying, I don't know what else to do." A sudden knock at the door made her freeze, clutching Sarah tighter to her chest. No one came calling at this hour, especially not in a snowstorm. Fear crawled up her spine as the knock came again, more insistent. "Hello," a deep voice called through the wood. "Madam, I heard a baby crying. Are you all right in there?" Amelia grabbed the rifle John had taught her to shoot, balancing Sarah in one arm. "Who's there?" she demanded, her voice steadier than she felt. "Name's Flynn Garrick, madam. I was passing through when the storm hit. Saw the light from your cabin." "I don't mean any harm, just checking if you need assistance." Amelia hesitated, Sarah's cries still filling the small space. She needed help, but letting a stranger in could be dangerous. "I've got some experience with colicky babies," the voice added. "My sister had twins last year." Something in the man's tone, a genuine concern rather than threat, made Amelia inch toward the door. She kept the rifle ready as she unlatched it with one hand. The wind pushed the door wide, revealing a tall figure wrapped in a snow-dusted duster. The man stepped into the light, removing his hat to reveal tousled dark hair and a face weathered by sun and wind. Kind blue eyes met hers as he stomped snow from his boots. "Sorry to intrude, madam," he said, his gaze flicking to the rifle, then back to her face. "Sounds like your little one's having a rough night." Amelia didn't lower the weapon. "What are you doing out in this storm?" Heading to Billings. "Got separated from my outfit when the snow started." He gestured to the howling baby. "May I?" Against her better judgment, Amelia nodded. Flynn approached slowly, setting his hat aside and with surprising gentleness extended his arms for the child. "What's her name?" he asked. "Sarah," Amelia replied, reluctantly transferring her daughter to the stranger's large hands. Flynn cradled the infant against his broad chest, one hand supporting her head while the other pressed gently on her belly. He began to hum a low tune, swaying slightly. "Little Sarah," he murmured, "what's troubling you tonight, sweetheart?" To Amelia's astonishment, Sarah's cries began to soften. Flynn continued his gentle motions, pressing his palm in small circles on the baby's stomach. "Gas pains, most likely," he explained. "My sister's boys had it something fierce. This usually helps." Within minutes, Sarah's wails had diminished to whimpers, then to the occasional hiccup. The sudden silence in the cabin was almost disorienting. "How did you do that?" Amelia whispered, finally lowering the rifle. Flynn smiled, the expression transforming his rugged features. "Like I said, lots of practice. Mind if I sit? Been riding since dawn." Amelia nodded, gesturing to the chair by the fire. As Flynn settled with Sarah still peaceful in his arms, she took the opportunity to study him. He wore the practical clothes of a working cowboy, worn denim, flannel, and leather. His face was clean-shaven but for a short beard, and though he carried a revolver on his hip, nothing about him seemed threatening. "You're alone out here?" he asked, his tone careful. Amelia stiffened. "My husband passed 3 months ago, right after Sarah was born." Flynn's eyes softened with genuine sympathy. "I'm sorry to hear that, Mrs. Everett." "Amelia Everett, Mrs. Everett. That's a heavy burden you're carrying." He looked down at the now sleeping Sarah. "You planning to stay on the homestead? It's our land," Amelia replied, lifting her chin. "John and I worked too hard to give it up," Flynn nodded, respect evident in his expression. "Admirable, madam, but it must be difficult managing alone with a little one." Amelia's throat tightened. It was the first time anyone had acknowledged how hard these months had been. "We make do." The fire crackled between them as Sarah slept peacefully in Flynn's arms. The wind continued to howl outside, rattling the shutters. "Storm's not letting up," Flynn observed. "If you've no objection, I'd be grateful for your floor tonight. I can sleep in the barn if you prefer, but I'd sooner not freeze to death before morning." Amelia considered him, weighing caution against compassion. "The barn's too exposed in this weather. You can sleep by the fire, Mr. Garrick." "Much obliged." He made to transfer Sarah back to her, but Amelia shook her head. "Let her rest if she's comfortable." She hesitated. "I haven't had more than 2 hours straight sleep since she was born." Flynn nodded in understanding. "Get some rest, Mrs. Everett." "I'll watch over the little one." Amelia should have been alarmed at the thought of sleeping while a stranger sat in her home, but exhaustion overrode caution. She retreated to her bed, keeping the rifle nearby, and was asleep almost before her head touched the pillow. When she woke, pale morning light filtered through the window. For a moment, she was disoriented by the silence, no crying, no wind. She sat up quickly, reaching for the rifle, only to find Flynn sitting in the same chair, Sarah still sleeping peacefully in the crook of his arm while he stoked the fire with his free hand. "Good morning," he said softly. "Hope we didn't wake you." "Little Miss and I have been getting acquainted while you got some rest." Amelia brushed hair from her face, suddenly conscious of her appearance. "What time is it?" "Just past 7, I reckon. Storm broke about an hour ago." 7. She'd slept nearly 8 hours straight, the longest since before Sarah was born. She stood, wrapping her shawl around her shoulders. "Thank you," she said, the words inadequate for the gift of unbroken sleep. Flynn smiled. "Happy to help. She's a beautiful child." Amelia took Sarah from him, noting how the baby remained peacefully asleep during the transfer. "You must have a way with children. Just experienced." He stretched, his tall frame unfolding from the chair. "I should get going. My outfit will be wondering what became of me." A pang of something like disappointment surprised Amelia. "Of course, you mentioned Billings." "Yes, madam, delivering horses to the military outpost there." He pulled on his coat and hat. "Your roof's got some damage from the storm, north corner. I can take a look before I head out if you'd like." Amelia hesitated only briefly. "I would appreciate that, Mr. Garrick." While Sarah continued to sleep, Flynn checked the roof, finding and patching a spot where the wind had torn away shingles. He chopped extra firewood, stacking it neatly by the door, and even helped Amelia repair a broken latch on the chicken coop. As he saddled his horse, a handsome bay gelding, Amelia stood in the doorway with Sarah bundled against the cold. "I don't know how to thank you," she said, "for everything." Flynn tipped his hat. "No thanks needed, Mrs. Everett, just doing what any decent person would." "Not many would stop in a blizzard for a crying baby," she replied. "Well, I've always had a soft spot for little ones." He mounted his horse with practiced ease. "If you don't mind my saying so, you might consider hiring some help come spring. This is a lot of land for one person to manage," Amelia sighed. "I haven't the funds for hired help." Flynn considered this. "My outfit will be heading back this way in about 2 weeks. If you're amenable, I could stop by, help with some of the heavier work." Amelia studied him, searching for ulterior motives but finding only genuine concern. "That would be kind, Mr. Garrick. Thank you." He nodded once, a small smile playing at his lips. "Until then, Mrs. Everett. Take care of yourself and little Sarah." As he rode away, Amelia watched until he disappeared over the ridge. For the first time in months, the weight on her shoulders felt just a little lighter. True to his word, Flynn returned exactly 2 weeks later. Amelia spotted him approaching from the south, his tall figure unmistakable even at a distance. Sarah, strapped to Amelia's chest in a makeshift sling, cooed and babbled as her mother hung laundry in the crisp winter sunshine. "Afternoon, Mrs. Everett," Flynn called, dismounting at the fence line. "Hope I'm not intruding." "Not at all, Mr. Garrick," Amelia replied, surprised by how pleased she was to see him. You're right on schedule. Flynn led his horse to the water trough. How's little Sarah doing? As if recognizing her name, the baby let out a happy gurgle. Amelia smiled. Much better since your visit. Your trick with her stomach has been a blessing. We've both been sleeping more. Glad to hear it. He removed his hat, running a hand through his dark hair. I see you've got fence posts that need mending on the south pasture, Amelia nodded. Among other things. The winter's been hard on the property. Flynn rolled up his sleeves. Then I'd best get started. For the next 3 days, Flynn worked from dawn until dusk, repairing fences, reinforcing the barn roof, and clearing fallen timber. In the evenings, he'd join Amelia for simple suppers, entertaining her with stories of his travels across the Western Territories. How did you come to be a cowboy? She asked on the third night as they sat by the fire after Sarah had been put down. Flynn smiled into his coffee cup. Wasn't much choice for a boy with itchy feet and no inheritance. Started as a stable hand when I was 14, worked my way up to wrangler, then trail hand. Been with the crossbar outfit for about 5 years now. Do you enjoy the life, most days? His eyes reflected the firelight. It's freedom in its way, new horizons, different skies, but it can be lonely too. Amelia understood loneliness all too well. No family, parents passed when I was young, got a sister in Nebraska with her husband and the twins I mentioned, visit when I can. He studied her. What about you? Any family besides Sarah? My parents are in Boston, she said. They didn't approve when I married John and moved west. We've been estranged, Flynn nodded, asking no more questions on the subject. Instead, he told her about the big cattle drives to Kansas, painting pictures with words of endless prairies and star-filled nights. On the morning he was set to leave, Flynn found Amelia in the barn, struggling with a broken wheel on the wagon. Let me, he offered, taking the tools from her hands. As he worked, he seemed to be considering his words carefully. Mrs. Everett, Amelia, I've been thinking. She looked up, surprised at the use of her first name. Yes, our outfit will be doing some local work for the next few months. Breaking horses for ranches in the territory. He focused intently on the wheel. I could stop by every couple of weeks, help maintain things if you'd allow it. Amelia felt a flutter in her chest that had nothing to do with practicality. I couldn't ask that of you. You're not asking. I'm offering. He met her eyes directly. Truth is, I worry about you and Sarah out here alone. We've managed so far, you have, and admirably so, but there's no shame in accepting help, Amelia. The way he said her name gentle but strong made her breath catch. People will talk, Mr. Garrick. Flynn, he corrected, and people always talk. Question is whether we let that dictate our choices. Amelia thought of the long, lonely months ahead, the work that needed doing, the comfort of having someone to speak with even occasionally. Every 2 weeks would be welcome, she said finally. But I insist on paying you for your labor. Flynn smiled, shaking his head. We can discuss that another time. He secured the wheel and stood, dusting off his hands. I'll be back before month's end. As winter slowly relinquished its grip on the Montana landscape, Flynn's visits became a rhythm in Amelia's life. Every other week, he would arrive, sometimes for a day, sometimes for 3, depending on his work commitments. He never came empty-handed, bringing supplies from town, seeds for spring planting, even a carved wooden rattle for Sarah that became her favorite toy. With each visit, Amelia found herself watching the horizon more eagerly for his approach. Sarah, now 6 months old, seemed to recognize him, reaching out chubby arms whenever Flynn entered the cabin. It was during a sudden April downpour that something shifted between them. Flynn had been replacing rotten boards on the porch when the skies opened. He rushed inside, soaked to the skin, laughing as he removed his dripping hat. Looks like I'll be staying until this passes, he said, water pooling at his feet. Amelia handed him a towel. You'll catch your death in those wet clothes. I have some of John's things still if you'd like to change. Flynn hesitated, then nodded. Much appreciated. While he changed in the small alcove where John's clothes were stored, Amelia busied herself preparing hot coffee, acutely aware of the man's presence in a way she hadn't allowed herself to acknowledge before. When Flynn emerged in John's flannel shirt and spare trousers, Amelia felt a momentary dissonance. The clothes that had hung perfectly on her husband's frame were snug on Flynn's broader shoulders and longer legs. "Sorry," he said, noting her expression. "They're a bit small." "It's fine," she assured him, passing him a steaming cup. "They're going unused otherwise." They sat at the table, listening to the rain hammer the roof. Sarah played on a blanket nearby, babbling happily to herself. "She's growing so fast," Flynn observed, his expression soft as he watched the baby. Amelia nodded. "Sometimes I can hardly believe it. She looks more like John every day." Flynn's eyes moved to her face. "Tell me about him, if you don't mind. What kind of man was he?" The question surprised her. Few people asked about John anymore, as if his memory was something to be avoided rather than honored. "He was kind," she began slowly. "Optimistic to a fault. He saw possibility where others saw hardship. That's why we came west. He had visions of a prosperous farm, a house full of children." She smiled sadly. He never even got to see Sarah. The fever took him just 2 days before she arrived. Flynn reached across the table, his calloused hand covering hers briefly. "He sounds like a good man." He was. Amelia met Flynn's gaze. "What about you? Has there ever been a Mrs. Garrick in the making?" A shadow crossed his features. "Once. Catherine was her name, daughter of a rancher in Wyoming. We were to be married 5 years ago." Amelia waited as he gathered his thoughts. "There was a dispute over water rights. Her father's ranch against another family. Things got ugly." His voice grew tight. "Catherine was caught in the crossfire. Wrong place, wrong time." "Flynn, I'm so sorry," Amelia whispered. He shook his head. "After that, I couldn't stay in Wyoming. Too many memories. Started drifting, taking whatever work came my way." The crossbar's been the closest thing to home since. The rain continued its steady drumming as they sat in understanding silence, two people who had lost more than most. When Sarah began to fuss, Flynn was the first to rise, scooping her up with practiced ease. "What do you think, Miss Sarah?" "Is it time for supper?" he asked, bouncing her gently. Amelia watched them, a lump forming in her throat at the natural way Flynn handled her daughter. He'd become so integrated into their lives that it was hard to remember a time before his visits. That night, as the rain continued, Flynn slept on a pallet by the fire as he always did when staying over. In the darkest hours before dawn, Sarah's cries woke Amelia. Before she could fully rise, she heard Flynn's voice, low and soothing. "SHH, little one, your mama needs her rest." Through the dim light, Amelia watched as Flynn lifted Sarah from her cradle, cradling her against his chest with one strong arm while he added wood to the fire with his free hand. He settled into the rocking chair, Sarah tucked securely against him. "That's better, isn't it?" he murmured. "Nice and warm now." Sarah's cries subsided as Flynn began to hum a soft tune, rocking slowly. Amelia remained still, mesmerized by the tableau before her, this strong man so gentle with her child. Something swelled in her chest, an emotion she wasn't ready to name. "Your mama is an extraordinary woman, you know that," Flynn whispered to the now quiet baby. "Brave as they come. Beautiful too, though I suspect you'll look just like her someday." Amelia closed her eyes, her heart racing at his words. She shouldn't be eavesdropping on what Flynn clearly thought was a private moment. "We'll look after her, won't we?" he continued softly. "Make sure she knows she doesn't have to carry everything alone." Sarah made a small cooing sound in response, as if in agreement. Flynn chuckled, the warm sound filling the small cabin. "That's right, our secret little miss." Amelia lay awake long after Flynn had returned Sarah to her cradle and resumed his place by the fire. His words played through her mind, stirring feelings she'd thought buried with John. Guilt followed swiftly on their heels. Was it disloyal to feel this way about another man? What would people think? Yet as dawn broke and she rose to find Flynn already awake, tending the fire and brewing coffee, the rightness of his presence in her home was undeniable. "Morning," he greeted, handing her a steaming cup. Sarah had a little wake up earlier, but she went right back to sleep. "Thank you," Amelia said, accepting the cup and wondering if he could hear the new awareness in her voice. "For everything, Flynn." His eyes held hers for a moment longer than usual. "Always, Amelia." The spring rains gave way to summer heat, bringing with them new challenges and opportunities. Flynn helped Amelia prepare and plant a vegetable garden, taught her how to repair tack and tools, and even brought 2 milk cows from a neighboring ranch that was selling off stock. "Consider it an investment," he said when she protested the gift. "Sarah needs milk, and the excess you can sell in town." His visits remained regular, though sometimes work kept him away for 3 weeks instead of 2. Amelia found herself counting the days between his appearances, Sarah seemingly doing the same, growing more excited as each anticipated arrival drew near. It was during a scorching July afternoon that Amelia finally acknowledged to herself what had been growing between them. Flynn had been showing her how to mend a section of fence when Sarah, now crawling with determined speed, had made a beeline for a snake sunning itself nearby. Flynn had moved with lightning reflexes, scooping up the baby before she reached danger, while simultaneously drawing his revolver and dispatching the rattler with a single shot. The whole incident had happened so quickly that Amelia barely had time to scream. Flynn held Sarah tightly, checking her over for any sign of harm, his face pale beneath his tan. "She's all right," he assured Amelia, passing the startled but unharmed baby to her trembling arms. "Just gave us a scare, didn't you, little miss?" That night after Sarah was asleep, Amelia found Flynn still on the porch, staring at the stars. "I can't thank you enough," she said, joining him at the railing. "If you hadn't been here today." Flynn shook his head. "Don't think about that. She's safe, that's what matters." Amelia studied his profile, strong and steady in the moonlight. "Why do you keep coming back, Flynn?" He turned to face her, his expression serious. "You know why, Amelia," her heart pounded. "I need to hear you say it." Flynn took a deep breath. "Because I care about you, both of you. More than I thought possible after Catherine." He ran a hand through his hair. "I know it hasn't been that long since John passed. I know you might not be ready. But I want you to know that I'm here, not just to help with the homestead, but because being with you and Sarah feels right in a way nothing has for years." Amelia felt tears prick her eyes. "I've been so confused. Feeling this way seems like a betrayal of John's memory." "Do you think John would want you to be alone?" Flynn asked gently. "To struggle on without happiness?" "No," she admitted. "He wouldn't. He always said life was for living." Flynn reached for her hand, his touch warm and steadying. "I'm not asking for promises, Amelia, just a chance." She looked at their joined hands, then back to his face. "I'm afraid, Flynn, of what people will say, of opening my heart again. Fear is natural," he said, "but so is hope, so is love." The word hung between them, neither quite ready to claim it fully, but its presence undeniable. Amelia stepped closer, allowing herself to lean against his strength. "Stay a little longer this time," she whispered. "Please." Flynn's arm encircled her shoulders, drawing her against his side. "As long as you'll have me." The next morning brought unexpected visitors. Amelia was hanging laundry while Flynn repaired the chicken coop when 3 riders approached. She recognized them as members of Flynn's outfit, the Crossbar crew. "Garrick," called the leader, a weather-beaten man with a salt and pepper beard. "Been wondering where you've been disappearing to these past months." Flynn straightened, wiping his hands on his jeans. "Boss, didn't expect to see you out this way." "Clearly," the man replied, dismounting. He tipped his hat to Amelia. "Madam, name's Walter Simmons. I run the Crossbar." Amelia nodded politely. "Amelia Everett, this is my homestead." Walter's shrewd eyes took in the scene, the repaired buildings, the thriving garden, Flynn's comfortable presence. "So I see, Flynn's been helping you out, has he?" "Mr. Garrick has been invaluable," she replied carefully. "My husband passed last winter, leaving me alone with our daughter." Understanding dawned on Walter's face. He exchanged glances with his men before turning back to Flynn. "Need a word, Garrick, in private." Flynn nodded, following his boss a short distance away. Amelia busied herself with the laundry, trying not to watch their conversation, which appeared increasingly heated. After several minutes, Flynn returned, his expression troubled. "Everything all right?" she asked quietly. "Walter needs me back at the outfit," Flynn explained. "We've got a large contract for the army, horses that need breaking before the month's end." "Of course," Amelia said, disappointment settling in her stomach. "Your work comes first." Flynn glanced back at the waiting men. "It's more than that. Walter's concerned about my involvement here. Says it's affecting my commitment to the outfit." Amelia stiffened. "I see, he disapproves." "It's not that simple." Flynn lowered his voice. I've been shirking duties, taking longer breaks than agreed. He's been covering for me, but with this new contract, he needs all hands. Then you should go, Amelia said, lifting her chin. I wouldn't want to be the cause of trouble. Flynn's face darkened. Amelia, we've managed before you came along, Mr. Garrick, she interrupted, retreating behind formality. We'll manage again. Thank you for your assistance. Hurt flashed across Flynn's features. Is that how you want to leave things? After last night was, Amelia faltered. Perhaps a mistake, we got caught up in the moment. That's not true and you know it. What I know, she said, keeping her voice steady, is that you have obligations, as do I. Sarah and this homestead must be my priorities. Flynn stepped closer, lowering his voice. I'm coming back, Amelia, as soon as this contract is fulfilled. 2 weeks, 3 at most. She nodded, not trusting herself to speak further. Wait for me, he said, an edge of desperation in his tone. Please. Before she could respond, Walter called Flynn's name. With a last lingering look, Flynn returned to his horse, mounting up beside his companions. As they rode away, Amelia remained among the billowing sheets, one hand pressed against the ache in her chest. The days following Flynn's departure stretched endlessly. Amelia threw herself into work tending the garden, caring for the livestock, making repairs where she could. At night, as Sarah slept, she found herself on the porch, scanning the horizon though she knew it was too soon for Flynn's return. 2 weeks passed with no word. Then 3. As the 4th week began, Amelia told herself she had been foolish to believe in promises. Men left, it was the way of things in this harsh country. She had been naive to think Flynn Garrick would be different. It was during a trip to town for supplies that Amelia learned what had happened. Standing in the general store, half listening to the proprietor's wife, Mrs. Henderson's gossip, she froze at the mention of the crossbar outfit. Terrible business with those horse thieves, Mrs. Henderson was saying. 3 men dead, including old Walter Simmons himself. God rest his soul. Amelia's heart stuttered. When did this happen? Oh, nearly 3 weeks ago now. The outfit was delivering horses to Fort Kearney when they were ambushed. Russians, they say, though some think it was Blackfoot. Army sent a patrol but found nothing. The men, Amelia managed. Do you know which ones were killed? Mrs. Henderson frowned. Walter for certain, and that young Mexican boy, can't recall his name. 3rd one was a tall fellow, dark hair, been with the outfit some years, I'm told. The store seemed to spin around Amelia. Flynn Garrick, she whispered. That might have been it, Mrs. Henderson nodded. Shame. All of them with no family to speak of, from what I hear. No one to even claim the bodies. Amelia completed her purchases mechanically, her mind numb. Outside, she loaded the wagon with trembling hands, strapped Sarah's basket securely, and began the long drive home. Grief, familiar yet somehow sharper than before, carved a hollow in her chest. Flynn was gone. The man who had brought warmth back to her life, who had held her daughter with such tenderness, who had promised to return, gone without even a proper goodbye. The homestead, which had begun to feel like a home again during Flynn's visits, now seemed empty and forlorn despite Sarah's presence. Amelia moved through her days like a ghost, caring for her daughter, tending to chores, but feeling as though part of herself had been buried alongside John and now Flynn. A week after learning the news, Amelia was awakened before dawn by the sound of hoofbeats. Grabbing her rifle, she approached the window cautiously. In the pale pre-dawn light, she made out a single rider approaching slowly, leading a second horse, her breath caught. Something in the rider's posture, the set of his shoulders. She flung open the door, rifle still ready, and stepped onto the porch. The rider stopped at the edge of the yard, raising one hand in greeting. Amelia, Flynn's voice called, rough with exhaustion but unmistakably alive. The rifle clattered to the porch as Amelia ran, heedless of her nightdress or bare feet. Flynn dismounted just in time to catch her as she flung herself into his arms. You're alive, she gasped, touching his face, his shoulders, assuring herself he was real. They said you were dead. Flynn winced as her hands found a bandage beneath his shirt. Nearly was. Got shot during the ambush. Would have bled out if an army patrol hadn't found me. Amelia stepped back, taking in his haggard appearance, the new lines around his eyes, the weight lost from his frame, the exhaustion evident in every movement. Mrs. Henderson said 3 men died. Walter, a young Mexican boy. Miguel, Flynn supplied, grief darkening his features. And Hank Stevens. I was unconscious for days at the fort. By the time I came around, word had already spread about the deaths. The army surgeon wouldn't let me travel until yesterday. Amelia led him to the house, noting how he leaned on her slightly. Inside, she helped him to a chair, pouring him water which he drank gratefully. I thought I'd lost you too, she said, her voice breaking. Just like John, Flynn captured her hand. I promised I'd come back. Sarah's morning cries interrupted them. Amelia fetched the baby, who squealed with delight at the sight of Flynn, reaching for him with eager hands. "Hello, little miss," he said, his voice thick with emotion as he took her. "My, how you've grown in just a few weeks." Amelia prepared breakfast while Flynn entertained Sarah, the domestic scene both familiar and miraculous, given how close she'd come to never experiencing it again. As they ate, Flynn explained what had happened after leaving the homestead. The Crossbar had indeed secured a large army contract, but on the delivery journey, they'd been ambushed by a gang targeting military shipments. Walter, Miguel, and Hank had been killed instantly. Flynn had taken a bullet to the shoulder, another grazing his side. "I was lucky," he said simply. "The army patrol found me half dead beside the trail, took me to Fort Kearny's infirmary. Once I was strong enough to travel, I came straight here." "What about the Crossbar?" Amelia asked. "With Walter gone, the outfit's finished," Flynn confirmed. "The remaining hands have scattered. The army compensated us for the lost horses, gave us each our final pay." He hesitated. "That's partly why I'm here, Amelia. I have a proposition." She looked at him questioningly. "This land needs a full-time hand," he said. "Not someone who visits every few weeks, and I need." He searched for words. A place to belong, people to care for. Amelia's heart quickened. "What are you saying, Flynn?" "I'm saying I'd like to stay, work this land with you, help raise Sarah." His eyes held hers. "Be a family if you'll have me." Amelia thought of the past months, the joy of Flynn's visits, the despair at thinking him dead, the completeness she felt with him beside her. "People will talk," she said, echoing her words from months before. Flynn's smile was tired but genuine. "Let them." "Unless you'd prefer to make it official first," Amelia's eyes widened. "Are you proposing Flynn Garrick?" "Not very romantically," he admitted. "But yes, Amelia Everett, I am. I love you. I love Sarah. Nearly dying made me realize life's too precious to waste on convention or fear." Tears spilled down Amelia's cheeks. "I thought I'd never love again after John. That part of me died with him. But you brought it back to life, Flynn. You and your quiet strength." "Is that a yes?" he asked, hope lighting his tired features. Amelia moved to his side, Sarah between them. "Yes. 1,000 times yes." They were married 2 weeks later in the small church in town, Sarah cooing in the arms of Mrs. Henderson, who had quickly changed her tune upon meeting the handsome, respectable Flynn Garrick. The ceremony was simple, attended by what few neighbors they had and the remaining Crossbar hands who had traveled in for the occasion. As they stood beneath the autumn sky, exchanging vows, Amelia thought of John. There was no guilt now, only gratitude for the love they had shared and the daughter they had created. She knew he would approve of Flynn, of the family they were building on the land John had loved. That night, with Sarah sleeping peacefully in her cradle, Amelia and Flynn stood on the porch of their homestead, his arms wrapped around her as they gazed at the stars. "I never thought I'd find this again," Flynn murmured against her hair. "A home, love." Amelia leaned into his embrace. "Nor I. It feels like a miracle." "The first time I held you and Sarah together," Flynn said, "that night when her crying brought me to your door, something clicked into place, like finding a piece of myself I didn't know was missing." "You saved us," Amelia said simply. "Not just from the practical hardships, but from the loneliness, the emptiness." Flynn turned her to face him, his expression serious in the moonlight. "We saved each other, Amelia. And I promise you, as long as I draw breath, you and Sarah will never face this world alone again." As he sealed the promise with a kiss, Amelia felt the final pieces of her broken heart mend. Life on the frontier would never be easy, but with Flynn's steady presence beside her, his quiet strength supporting her, she knew they could face whatever challenges lay ahead. Winter came again to the Montana homestead, but this year the cold winds found a very different scene. The cabin, now expanded by Flynn's skilled hands to include 2 additional rooms, glowed with warmth and life. Inside, Amelia sat by the fire, nursing their newborn son, while Flynn read a story to Sarah, now a bright-eyed toddler of 18 months. Outside, snow blanketed the 40 acres that had flourished under their joint care. The barn housed not only their horses and milk cows, but also the beginnings of a respectable herd of cattle. Flynn's vision for their future prosperity. The root cellar was stocked with vegetables from their summer garden, the smokehouse full of cured meat. As night deepened and Sarah's eyes grew heavy, Flynn gathered his stepdaughter into his strong arms, cradling her against his chest just as he had that first night. The little girl, who called him Papa without hesitation, nestled against him with complete trust. Her baby cried in the night, Flynn murmured, meeting Amelia's eyes over their children's heads, and a cowboy wrapped them both in his arms in quiet strength. Amelia smiled, tears of gratitude shining in her eyes. And brought them home, she finished softly. Outside, the Montana wind continued its ancient song across the plains, but within the walls of the Garrick homestead, all was peace and love, a family forged through loss and hope, bound together by the quiet strength of a cowboy who had once stopped to help a crying baby in the night.